Their neighbours, one block east, across North Lake Avenue, received evacuation orders more than 10 hours earlier. 1 block away. Hello and welcome to the Ann and Phelim Scoop. I'm Ann McElhinney.
Hello, Ann McElhinney. I'm Phelim McAleer. So what's on the show today, Ann McElhinney?
Oh, just about everything's on the show today, Phelim.
We go from Israel to Ireland to New York to the deepest recesses of the federal bureaucracy.
Please, no. Not there. Not that dark place.
Yes.
Not that scary dark place.
It's
Phelim.
worse than you think. So, anyway, on the show today, Ireland of the welcomes, unless you're a Jew, reason 546 million why we have to bring the October 7 play to Ireland. We look at Ireland's latest disgrace in Ireland's very crowded field of anti-Semitism, and in the general field of anti-Semitism, Ireland is definitely leading. Ireland doesn't win in many things, but I tell you, it's winning in the anti-Semitism stakes.
Unbelievable.
And a little treat for you, Anne.
I heard this.
Yes, I've just put it in. You don't know anything about it. Is Elon Musk ready to take on the federal workforce and eliminate waste? Does he know how bad it is? I bring you a sneak peek behind the scenes
of Doge, right? Okay, all right. I don't even know.
You don't know?
Okay, and danger everywhere. Can the Trump presidency succeed in launching a golden age for America if the deep state has put in place regulations that won't allow them to put America first? Our interview with the Manhattan Contrarian looks at the worst regulation of all and how it could be overcome.
And danger is a kind of play on words there. Yes, it is.
And while the numbers of dead continue to rise in Los Angeles fires, we expose a massive scandal that the LA Times knows about but just won't spell out.
And that's unusual because this particular scandal,
they'd be very good at particularly pointing out this particular type of scandal. Yes. So we bring you that. And if you think birthright citizenship is a God-given right that evil Trump is destroying, wait till you hear how the wokest country in Europe got rid of it amid overwhelming support from the people.
Yes. So,
and Hollywood. What's happening there?
Well, it's dying. And, I think that's a general consensus. But I believe it's self-inflicted homicide, not murder. And the latest Oscar nominations are the glitziest suicide note in history. So we'll be analysing those. So anyway, Michael D. Higgins.
Oh dear.
The poetic dwarf who doubles as Ireland's president. Ireland never wastes an opportunity to prove that it is the most anti-Semitic country in Europe, and it's quite a competitive field. But now the president of Ireland has decided it's appropriate to use the Holocaust Memorial event to attack Israel and Israel's right to defend itself after October 7th. He was asked not to attend the event. He was asked not to give a speech. Actually, he was asked not to give a speech because of his spreading of anti-Semitic, anti-Israel misinformation, by the way, because he had written this obsequious letter to the president of Iran about the death of the previous president and how he looked forward to the new president this is a religious dictator.
And I think the line in the letter was something like, and the very best of luck in all your endeavours.
Yes, and he accused the Israeli embassy of circulating that letter in an attempt to discredit him.
However, it turns out that the Iranian embassy themselves had circulated it on X.
Yes. So he was asked not to attend the event, and that's just one of the things he's done in the past. He was asked not to politicize the event. He did.
He did both.
He used Ireland's official Holocaust Memorial event to attack Israel for the war in Gaza.
Again.
So compared the Holocaust to relatives searching in the rubble in Gaza. A war is not a war crime. A war is not a Holocaust. A war is not a genocide.
Yep.
But talking of so a number of women, including one who was pregnant, objected to this, and they didn't stand up and shout. They didn't try and disrupt the meeting. They stood up and turned their back on him.
I think it's called, by the way, among progressives, a peaceful protest. If ever there was a definition of a peaceful protest, this is what these people did, including somebody called Leor Tibbet, who's 37, who was forcibly removed from the event.
Dragged. She was dragged.
She was literally
let's
dragged.
Play that video,
yeah, let's
actually.
watch that video of this is what a peaceful protester at the event had to endure.
What happened to me? So, I've been living in Ireland for 7 years now. I never had a problem with Irish.
I mean, is it even enough to call what she did a protest? I mean, it is, but it's just on the very edge of it. But, he also then went on to compare anti-Semitism to Islamophobia, xenophobia, racism, homophobia, and intolerance, and used it as an excuse to bring in, what is it? The Holocaust was enabled by a regime of systematic murder that began with the manipulation of language and the spreading of fear. We in our times must be alert to the identification and confrontation of hate speech in any of its many guises. So in other words, hate speech laws were to restrict speech. He also called the Holocaust twice an attempted genocide. Now, I don't think that all the politicians in Ireland have called the war in Gaza. They've called it a genocide in Gaza.
Yeah, they haven't. They've no qualifier on it.
No. So that's why basically, and we want to repeat this, why we've created the October 7 play. We saw how the anti-Semites wanted to focus on Israel's response, whilst never wanting to mention the day that started the war. Mm-hmm. They would never admit, and they don't want to admit, there would be no war if October 7 hadn't happened. There would be no October 8 war in Gaza if October 7 hadn't happened. So we went to Israel, we interviewed survivors, the bereaved, the heroes of the day. We took their compelling stories and made them into a verbatim play called October 7.
Which ran off Broadway for 6 weeks.
Yes.
The New York Post said October 7th was spellbinding, powerful and a sanctuary for truth.
I agree.
The lawyer and academic Alan Dershowitz said the play was absolutely brilliant. He said, and he went on to say, this just allowed people to speak for themselves. You were put back in time. You were hearing their voices. It's brilliantly structured. It has everything you want. It has drama, veritas, emotion, everything you want in a play. And that's why I want this play to be seen by as many people as humanly possible, he said.
We're determined to bring the play to Ireland, so people need to hear the truth. And this just gives us extra oomph to bring it to Ireland. So if you want to donate to make that happen, actually, let's play a clip of the play.
Yes.
Let's play the clip of the play. We want to bring this to Ireland. We want to bring this truth. Let's play that clip now.
There's an opening in the leaves that casts a ray of sunshine on me. The glitter on my face and jewelry catches the light, and I think it's really dangerous, so I start removing all my jewelry. I have a necklace, and on it is written, Vish Marak, the blessing of the priest Yevarak, Adonai Vish Marak. The Lord will save you and will guard you. I'm not a religious person, but I really felt that I needed that protection. So I held it tight, and I started to pray. And suddenly I saw a bird flying. And the bird flew and landed on a branch close to my hand. And I don't know how to explain it or to describe the feeling, but I really felt that my grandfather of blessed memory was with me. When I got home later that night and told my mom, she told me the date my grandfather died, October 7th, 2016.
If you want to help us get this play to Ireland and everywhere else as well, please go to October7theplay.com and give what you can.
Donate. You know, we're a 501c3. We do it all for you, but only because of you. So
yes.
Thank you. So
thank you so much.
So
this is the story, Phelim, that you were kind of hiding from me.
Yes.
But I'm going to react to. So watch me react to said story that Phelim would like to now tell us.
The New York Times has a number of columns. I think one's called The Ethicist, and then they have another one called Actually, what's it called? It's one where work friend. That's it, work friend.
Oh, right.
So where you write in, and they always use the ethicist to push a point.
Right.
Now, work friend, I don't know push a political point. I don't think work friend has got that memo that you're supposed to push political. Maybe this is anti-Elon Musk, anti-neurodivergent, but that's not how it came out. So the story is someone has written into work friend for advice from Anna Holmes, who's
the expert.
She gives advice about the office, money, careers, and work-life balance. Right,
Good girl.
So anyway, the headline is socially awkward or obstinate, and it's I work for a large state organization.
Okay.
In the role of interviewing employees about their commitment to the mission.
Okay.
Which to me is an absolute waste of money.
Yes.
Like what? Why on earth are you interviewing your employees about their commitment to the mission? Like, if they're not committed to the mission, you fire them. But no, this is a government employee.
Fair enough. Okay, let's hear.
I've been in this role for 5 years, and I've conducted sensitive interviews for years and love the work. The problem is the videographer.
Oh,
these videographers.
You can't.
You can't.
They're the worst. The videographers.
We're just looking over at the videographer.
We're looking over at our videographer friend, dear friend. But no, there's always a bit of awkwardness.
They're mostly the worst.
Yeah, mostly the worst. Let's
go.
Peaceful. Yes, go on.
The problem is the videographer I'm forced to work with, who pretty much lacks emotional intelligence.
Oh God, I hate that.
This is a quote diversity issue. Close quotes, because he is, quote, on the spectrum, close quotes.
Oh.
In other words, he
that
can't.
Kind of diversity.
Yes. I get good interviews because I put people at ease quickly.
Ugh.
He does the opposite, and I constantly have to do damage control. He tells inappropriate stories. He is brusque and rude to me and to the interview subject. One person I interviewed a few years ago said she still remembered how uncomfortable he made her feel. He was so rude on assignment at a remote site that the department told him to leave and never come back. Then there's the quality of his work. I've worked with great videographers that are a terrific third person in the room and can handle all sorts of audio and visual challenges. But he makes requests such as, quote, don't move your head when you talk, close quote, or keep your tone of voice even, close quote.
Okay.
Yes, to make his editing work easier,
right.
Or because he doesn't know how to handle a situation. I had to take over editing for a while because of this. He will even obstruct a project if he suspects it's beyond his abilities. A videographer at the executive level What does that even mean?
Okay, keep going.
Recently told me that they'd have to pick up departmental projects when he proved himself not competent to complete them. I brought these issues to the attention of his manager as well as the departmental manager, but they just keep saying, quote, he's trying, or, quote, he's taking emotional intelligence classes.
Oh, isn't that lovely?
Emotional intelligence classes.
Should we all need those, Phelim?
I don't. I was mostly... I'm come from a
Trust me, Phelim. You need an emotional intelligence classes.
Oh, emotional intelligence is for girls.
Move on. He
has announced at our team meetings in front of management that attention to interpersonal skills is a waste of time.
I'm with him.
He never accepts responsibility for any behaviour or poor work quality, but he wants, quote, grace, close quotes, from everyone who might be critical of his work. The department and the organisation deserve better. What might be a good way to get leaders to take this seriously? I would be grateful for any advice.
Okay.
So this man has been destroying his work for 5 years, and alienating people, messing things up, destroying things, not doing his job, and it hasn't even gone to the level of a complaint or a disciplinary matter.
That's the government for you?
That's the government. That's what Elon Musk has to go now and tell people like that, you're not going to have a job. I mean, and the thing is, there's probably no records of the complaints about him because nobody wants to put it on record. Because, by the way, no point in putting it on record because nothing will happen. So that is the story of the week, really, about Elon's troubles.
This is what Elon is. This is what Elon is facing.
By the way, in the comments section, please tell us your horror story of working for the government, because I know you have plenty of them. So, talking of horror stories,
yes, and more government issues.
Yes, we want to go over now to the interview we did earlier with Frances Menton, who is the Manhattan
Contrarian, which Phelim has a lot of difficulty saying.
Yes, we're going to hear about one of the biggest underground dangers to the Trump administration. Underground, you see it?
I saw that Phelim. Yeah.
It's kind of playing words there, folks. Underground dangers to the Trump administration. So let's go over to the interview we did with Francis just before we came on air. So Francis Menton is the founder of the influential blog, The Manhattan
Contrarian.
Which takes a contrarian view of the world.
Yes.
He has a particular interest in climate change policies and the role government plays in our daily lives. He's known for his, his thought-provoking critiques of Manhattan political ideologies and ideologues who surround him. His sharp analysis of New York and national politics and his defense of common sense make him one of the more unique voices in the public discourse today. Before retiring and becoming the Manhattan Contrarian.
Contrarian?
I have a real problem with that word.
You have a little problem with that, Phil.
Menton was a partner with the law firm Wilkie, Farr and Gallagher. Welcome to the show, Francis.
Great to be here. Great to be here.
Thank you so much. I just noticed, by the way, that one of the partners in your firm was Gallagher, an Irishman, I suppose.
I suppose he was an Irishman. I mean, that would go back a ways.
Right.
He was actually the head of the firm for a long time before I got there. I believe he started work there in the 19-teens.
Right.
And among his other claims to fame, he was the campaign manager of Wendell Willkie when Willkie ran for president in 1940.
Very good.
Wow.
So I suppose the first question we have is, what's it like to live in Manhattan as a contrarian?
Well, Manhattan is a fabulous place to live. Some might call it a theme park for adults. I
agree.
No, my husband, when he grows up,
I live in a beautiful area called Greenwich Village, and my neighbors are very nice people. They're mentally deluded, many of them, not all. So there is definitely a community of conservatives in Manhattan that includes Republican Party organizations that are completely unable to elect anybody to office, but they don't give up. And it includes, for lawyers, a Federalist Society chapter, which is quite active, and I know all the people in that. So I have a
good group,
substantial community of conservative friends, let alone my kids. I have raised well, and one of my daughters is married to a guy who grew up just a couple of blocks from us in Greenwich Village, and he's a libertarian, and so are his parents. So these things exist.
Okay, very good to know. Good to know.
Right. So, one of the reasons we wanted to talk to you, apart from the fact that it's always nice to meet a Manhattan contrarian, you wrote recently on your blog about the endangerment findings. The endangerment finding, and that's capital E, capital F. So, you said it's the foundation underlying all the Biden era regulations restricting and suppressing fossil fuels, and you can be sure that any attempt to eliminate it will be met with a full-bore litigation attack from the forces of the crazy left. So tell us what the endangerment finding is and why is it so important
right now?
Right now, what?
Yeah, why should people be really focused on this right now?
Well, right now, so Trump came out with how many, 50 or something executive orders on day one.
Yes.
But one of them is called Restoring American Energy or something.
Unleashing, unleashing something.
Unleashing,
yeah.
There you go. Unleashing American Energy. And if you start going through that, you'll get to paragraph 6F, and paragraph 6F directs EPA to, within 30 days, report to the White House or OMB on specifically the endangerment finding and whether it remains legal and valid. So there is right there a definite, clear signal that the endangerment finding is up for reconsideration. Yes. So that's why right now,
what is it?
What is the endangerment finding? Yeah.
Okay. So if you were to happen to read the Clean Air Act, which I know is your favorite bedtime reading,
Yes.
and you were to make
I
it
listen to
all
the
the way to
audiobook. I'm more into the
Yeah.
audiobook. It's a brilliant
Oh yeah,
narrator.
yeah, non-stop
And if you
action.
were to make it all the way to Section 202A1,
Oh
you
dear.
would find out that the administrator of the EPA is authorized by that section to regulate such pollutants
Hmm.
as the administrator shall determine in his judgment constitute a danger to human health and welfare.
Wow.
I
Wow.
think it's actually public health and welfare, constitute a danger to public health and welfare. So the administrator, in order to regulate, how does it come about that carbon dioxide can be regulated without further statute?
Yeah.
The Clean Air Act, until amended in 2022, never even mentioned carbon dioxide as a
Yes.
pollutant. So how does it come about that the administrator claims the right and ability to issue all these regulations, like
Just a
closing all
moment, Francis. Just a
fossil
moment.
fuel power
So
plants?
just a moment. So the administrator of the EPA has found that carbon dioxide is an endangerment to this. Is a pollutant that endangers public health. Is that what's happened?
That is correct. And
Yeah.
so that happened in 2009 during the Obama
Yeah.
administration,
Right.
December 2009. And that document, that regulatory action in which the EPA in the Obama administration made that determination, is called the endangerment finding. So
Okay.
that's what it is.
Can the endangerment finding then be rescinded by Trump? And why was it not rescinded during Trump's last administration? Because this is obviously going to destroy any attempt Trump
Yeah.
has
To
unleash American energy.
To drill, baby, drill.
Yeah.
Well, you might say that. Now, you're actually talking to the right guy here, and I don't know if you know about my exploits on this subject.
Yes, we do.
So Obama left office at the beginning of 2017, and Trump took office. And people like myself were paying very close attention to the endangerment finding and thinking this has got to be agenda item number one for Trump to get rid of this. Okay. But we didn't want to take any chances. So I put together with others a group of people called the Concerned Household Electricity Consumers Council. And I became one of their lawyers. And I had a co-counsel named Harry McDougald. And we wrote a petition to the EPA, petitioning them to reconsider and rescind the endangerment finding. And we filed that petition with the EPA on January 20, 2017, like 2 minutes after
Yes.
Trump was sworn in. Now, we certainly were hoping that Trump and his people would not need our prodding to get this done.
Yeah.
But it turned out it was the opposite. Not only did they not get it done, but we filed that petition on January 2017, and then we heard nothing. And we continually, for the next 4 years, trying to find out what was happening on this. And not only that, as new evidence and so forth, new scientific papers came out, we continually re-upped and submitted supplemental petitions, one after the other, I think 7 in total, over the course of Trump 1.0, seeking and asking and begging the Trump administration to reconsider and redo the endangerment finding. Now, they did roll back substantially the Obama era regulations, particularly something called the Clean Power Plan, and which was shut down all fossil fuel power plants. And they attempted to replace that with something called the ACE, Affordable Clean Energy Regulation, which was much less destructive. So they did do that. But that thing was highly at risk of being struck down by the courts, precisely because of the endangerment finding. And indeed, it ultimately was struck down by the DC Circuit.
So eventually, basically all Trump's achievements in the new administration can be thwarted because there's this endangerment finding, danger, and all all laws have to pass the endangerment finding.
I think.
Well, I just have one. I have one
Yeah,
question.
not 100% clear because of its Supreme Court case in 2022.
That's
Aha,
that's what I was coming
What
on
I've
to
Yes.
been
now.
talking to you
So
about.
are you talking about the Chevron case, the Chevron
No.
judgment?
No,
Oh, so
No.
well, I have a question, and maybe you'll answer this. You'll answer about the Supreme Court. So there was the Chevron case where the Supreme Court found that administrators cannot make law. If it's not in the legislation, only Congress can go beyond the legislation. Is that not going to endanger the endangerment finding? And tell us, what's the court case you're talking about?
Okay, so first of all, that case, Chevron is the case that got overruled. The case that overruled it is called Loper-Bright, I believe. And the Loper-Bright may have something to do with it, but unfortunately, so somebody could try a run at that. But unfortunately, this statute, Section 202 of the Clean Air Act, as I was saying to you before, says that a pollutant is something that, quote, in the judgment of the administrator,
Oh, okay.
end quote. So it specifically commits it to the judgment of the administrator.
Yes.
So I think that Loper-Bright would be of minimum or not major significance. But the case that is of major significance is called West Virginia v. EPA.
Okay.
And West Virginia v. EPA is the question. I told you the DC Circuit struck down the Affordable Clean Energy Plan, and then that case got to the Supreme Court. It's a very complicated procedural history, which I won't even be able to remember to recite to you here. But
Yes.
that case and other pieces of different things got to the Supreme Court in 2022 in a case called West Virginia v. EPA. And that case involved the Clean Power Plan. So I told you that this is too complicated for words. So Obama had put in place this Clean Power Plan, forcing the closure of all fossil fuel power plants. And then Trump had reversed that and put in place the Affordable Clean Energy Plan. But then Biden turned around and reversed it again and put something else in place, which wasn't the same as the Clean Power Plan, but equally forced over time the closure of all fossil fuel power plants. And this case got to the Supreme Court in 2022, West Virginia v. EPA. And the decision of the Supreme Court in that case was that the EPA is not authorized by the Clean Air Act to engage in the kind of fundamental transformation of the economy that results from restrictions on CO2, unless there is a clear direction from the Congress in the statute to do that, which there is not.
So is that
under that?
Yes. So is that the place where you think there's a better chance now with Trump 2.0?
Well, I think that with Trump 2.0, he still would be extremely well advised to get rid of the endangerment fund.
Right. And can he
to get rid of the
endangerment clause? Can he do that?
Yes, I highly recommend to you and to all of your listeners to read my blog post of actually today or yesterday and today. I updated it this morning with it has a lot of details on exactly the answer to that question. But my answer to the question is yes. And my answer to the question is I think that if he does it right and carefully, he will be successful in getting rid of the endangerment finding. It will face litigation. He will probably lose in the DC Circuit and win in the Supreme Court.
So why was it not rescinded during Trump's last administration? And do you think the Trump administration understand the importance of rescinding it now? That it would just stymie all their plans if it's not rescinded?
I think they clearly do understand the significance of rescinding it now. And I think that's reflected in the executive order that's just come out. And in terms of why they didn't do it the first time around, I have, some but extremely limited inside knowledge. I understand that there were people in the White House who thought that it cost too much political capital to do it, and they could accomplish essentially the same thing by other means. and including, I mean, Exhibit A of that being rescinding the Clean Power Plan and putting in place this Affordable Clean Energy Plan, which, as I said, was much less destructive, although not of zero destruction. But so that was the alternative approach that they took. But the flaw in that approach became obvious when Biden came in and immediately reversed and put in place his new rule. I shouldn't say immediately. It took him a long time, and he actually, the big rules were only implemented in 2024. There's one.
Well, he was getting old, you know. He was getting slow. He was slowing down a bit, you know. The poor fella, you know. He took him 3 years to find the Oval Office, probably, and you know that.
So what would it mean? So if they succeed, what would it mean if Trump gets to enact this unleashing of American energy? What would it mean for America? What would it mean for the world?
Well, first thing, if they succeed in rescinding the endangerment finding, that means that all the other rules and regulations and executive orders that follow from the endangerment finding can be rescinded by executive order and or regulatory action and don't require a statute of Congress. So huge. Everything that Biden has done, most significantly, the rules trying to put power plants out of business and trying to make you buy an electric car, can be swept away without action of Congress, and all kinds of other things, from the rule that won't let you have an incandescent light bulb, or that ruins your dishwasher or your washing machine, or that restricts pipelines from being built, or that it restricts drilling on federal lands. And there are just dozens.
I mean, it's huge. I mean,
very swept away.
It was very interesting. I think it was on CBS at the weekend. You know, Margaret Brennan was saying to J.D. Vance, "Oh, you haven't reduced the price of bacon. You know, that's terrible." And he was going, one of the big costs of the price of bacon is getting it to the store. That is about diesel, the price of diesel. You know, getting it from growing it on a farm. That's energy. That takes energy. So it's all about making energy cheaper, and he is saying if you want cheaper bacon or cheaper eggs, you know, you make energy cheaper. I just want to really wrap up with one question. You know, you're a Manhattan contrarian, and you know, Manhattan. One of the interesting aspects of the last election was places like Manhattan. I wouldn't say shifting right, but
shifting.
Shifting.
They're shifting. Yes.
Yeah.
Is this a permanent thing? Do you think? Is there hope, or is it just they've had enough? Or tell us what is this going to? Are we looking at a realignment?
Are you feeling a vibe shift? I heard somebody describe it as a vibe shift. Do you
well,
feel
vibe shift? Vibe shift may be too strong a word, and Manhattan may be the wrong place to look to. But for example, I've been talking about the federal efforts to suppress fossil fuels, but here in New York, we have our whole different regime of crazy to suppress fossil fuels, which include, for example, a requirement for all larger residential buildings, that is 25,000 square feet and up, to convert to electric heat. Yeah. And they don't have any plan to provide for the heat, but the process, how do you convert we have lots of big residential buildings like that, because we're the world of apartment buildings, not so much single family houses. So we have lots and lots of them, and the majority of people in the city live in those buildings. And the cost of converting them to electric heat is enormous. There is a mandate that it be done for most buildings by 2030. People are only starting to figure out what this means, and I'm involved, and one of my daughters is involved in the effort to spread the word on on the sword of Damocles that is hanging over you as a co-op or condo building, and that has a very real ability to.
You know what that reminds me of? Do you know what that reminds me of, Phelim? I don't know if it made you think when Francis was saying that. We lived when we first got married. We lived in Romania. And we lived in an apartment. And I remember we moved in like whatever in the summer, and then it started to get cold. And we had a housekeeper who was more than a housekeeper. She was a marvellous help to us in all kinds of ways, dealing with the authorities. But we said to her, "Oh, I don't know how to fix. Can you get the heat going here? Because we don't know how to turn it on." And she went, "Oh, we must wait." And we're like, "What are we waiting for?" She said, "No, we wait for the city." And we're like, "No, we'll put on this heat. No, we put on this heat now because it's really cold now." And she went, "No, the city will decide." When there's been enough cold days, then they will turn it on. So I would say your daughter...
Then they don't turn it off.
And then they don't turn it off, and then you have it... You're so hot that all the windows are open. So I would say your daughter, when she's doing her campaign, you should get her to add this, that once everything becomes electric, everything can be controlled by somebody that's not you. by the
switch.
Just with a switch.
But also...
And I have such a clear memory of that. And I remember thinking... This is the madness. And by the way, this is exactly what's wrong. What I have a problem with in terms of electrification right now today in Ireland, the west of Ireland, where lots of our friends. There was a storm in Ireland, big storm in Ireland. Not the first storm they've ever had, but a big storm. Lots of people are without electricity. A friend of ours in Galway has written to say that the people in Galway have been told that the electricity will not come back on until the 5th of February, and he put up the screen grab from the Electricity Supply Board. Now, meanwhile, we have bog in Ireland, as you probably know, and they have made it, you would go to prison. You go to prison if you cut your own bog for use to heat your home. And most homes now are not...
You can heat your home, but you can't sell it to your neighbours. You can't give it to your neighbours.
And you can't, and houses now are being built in Ireland with no open fireplace. So what happens to the people now with no electricity and no way to heat if they've got an electric house? How do you heat the house until the 5th of February? And it's really cold over there right now. So I have a big issue with electrification. Sorry, that's a little bit of a long rant.
I pointed out this morning to some friends of mine working on this endangerment finding issue that the key point is that doing away with fossil fuels for heat is a far, far bigger danger to human health and safety than carbon dioxide in the atmosphere, which might raise the temperature a degree 100 years from now.
Yeah.
This is a very immediate threat that your heat could be unreliable in the winter.
Yeah. No. There's 500,000 people in Ireland who are discovering that. That the electrification process has landmines attached. So, Francis, thank you very much for coming on the show. We will very good to talk.
My pleasure.
And we'll put a link, by the way, in the show notes so everyone can find where you are at the Manhattan Contrarian.
Tell people how to find you.
Well, yes. So if you send me what that is, I will put it in my blog so people can go and watch this.
But tell us how people can find you on social media, etc., and what the name of your website is. ManhattanContrarian.com.
Perfect.
Very good.
We'll put that in the show notes. Thank you so much.
Thanks,
really
Francis.
appreciate it, Francis.
Bye.
Thank you so much.
Bye. Well, this is going to be interesting to see what happens.
Yes.
It definitely sounds like it's challenging, and it definitely sounds like a lot of lawyers are going to get a lot of work out of this.
It also sounds like they took their eye off the ball in the last administration. Mm-hmm. So let's see if they're going to be able to keep their eye on the ball in this administration. So you have a story on the LA fires, Anne.
Yeah, this is so interesting. So this is, so the Los Angeles Times have been doing actually a really good job of covering the fact that most of the people who died in the LA fires either received late evacuation orders or never received evacuation orders. Yeah. But there's one conclusion from all that they've written that they are unwilling to make.
They just won't go there, as they say.
And they just won't go there. So here's a headline, and I'm just putting it up on the screen. Western Altadena got evacuation order many hours after the Eaton fire exploded. 17 people died there.
So that's so there was. You may have heard of the Pacific Palisades fire where President Trump came last week. But however, almost an equally destructive fire in LA at the same time was the Eaton fire, which really wiped out the community of Altadena.
One part of the Altadena community,
which has a significant.
No, we're not going there yet. So
it has a distinctive flavour. Okay.
As we move through this story, just try to remember, keep in mind west and east. So according to the LA Times, records, radio logs and interviews show that residents living west of Lake Avenue were not told to evacuate via electronic alerts until many hours after the Eaton fire had started. Residents said they were stunned how long it took to get the evacuation order, and by then many homes in the area were on fire. All of the 17 deaths confirmed so far, this is a couple of days ago, in the Eaton fire occurred in areas of Western Altadena that received emergency evacuation orders many hours after the fire started. On Tuesday, and I'm reading now from the Los Angeles Times story, and it's worth reading just to understand how just awful this was. On Tuesday, after the Times findings were published, Los Angeles County Supervisor Catherine Barga called for an outside investigation into the evacuations. "I have deep concerns,"
I'm sure she does,
said Barga. "There has to be a thorough examination of life-saving emergency notifications that took place on that horrific evening. From what I've been told, it was a night of..." I include this quote because I think it's important. "From what I have been told, it was a night of pure chaos for both fire and first responders." And you know how I respond to that? With shock, by the way, because I think the whole idea of being a first responder is that you do not respond chaotically to an emergency, because you have the training not to be chaotic, right?
And the equipment and the technology.
Pure chaos, right? So some residents in Western Altadena waited as conditions deteriorated. So this is very interesting. It also brings up another issue that I wanted to mention at the end, Phelim, which I have an issue with, about people who are very law-abiding and how maybe that's sometimes a very big mistake. And in this case, very much so. Some residents in Western, again, remember, Western Altadena, waited as conditions deteriorated. Some evacuated on their own after seeing an eerie orange glow on the horizon, but others stayed in their homes. People were reluctant to leave because they had faith in the system, said Esther Song, 35. "There's no warning, there's no order happening, so we just had to make the call ourselves."
She left.
Until then, she said she had a sense of false security because the fire appeared to be moving eastward and the evacuation maps...
So there was evacuation maps, and you were being told you could look and see who's been evacuated. They weren't. In fact, the fire seemed to be going the opposite direction.
And she kept checking the evacuation map, she said, seeing warnings and orders to the east and nothing in her neighbourhood west of Lake. She figured at least there would be a warning if the fire was moving in her direction. Claire Robinson, and I am warming up to this but I do think it's worth hearing these stories. Claire Robinson, another resident who lived west of Lake, said she woke up at 2:20 a.m. to the feeling of smoke filling her lungs. She and her husband Ryan went to sleep around 10 p.m. knowing their home in the 32,000 block of 3200 block, of Santa Anita Avenue was not listed as in the evacuation zone. But when Robinson steps outside, she saw glowing embers landing on the neighbourhood homes. She hurried back inside, woke her husband and said, "Oh my God, I think we'd better get out of here. Because oh my God, are we still outside the danger zone? Because I don't think that's true. I think we'd better get out of here." There had been no evacuation order on their phones.
This is the LA Times speaking.
This is the LA Times speaking. There had been no evacuation order on their phones. No one had publicly urged people in their neighbourhood to leave. And as they drove away in their van, they saw no firefighters on the smoky streets. We were, and I think this is such a sad line, we were 100% alone, Robinson said. There was no system to alert people. The couple and other survivors say they were fortunate to escape with their lives because they had no warning. "I would never have believed this could have happened," Robinson said, calling the response to the fire a systemic failure. After leaving their homes, I really do want to read through this because I think it's incredibly important. After leaving their homes, Robinson and her husband drove through the neighbourhood looking for emergency personnel. They wanted to tell them, I don't know if you've read this film because it's actually quite extraordinary. They wanted to tell them to update the map and to rouse neighbours who could be asleep, including elderly people and those with mobility problems, to tell them to leave. "We looked everywhere for someone to alert," she said, and there was nobody. Finally, about 12 blocks from her house, she found two people parked at an intersection in an official-looking vehicle, though they weren't wearing Sheriff's Department's uniform, and she wasn't sure who they worked for. "This neighbourhood's going to blow up," she said, Robinson recalled telling them. "You've got to change the map. You've got to get the word out. Can you do something?" She said the two seemed dazed and mumbled a response, but they didn't spring into action. About 3:30 a.m, when Robinson reached her sister's place in Westwood, her phone buzzed with an evacuation order. The map had finally been updated. She goes on to say, "We are all recounting, oh my God, we weren't on the evacuation map. We didn't hear any sirens from any people telling us to leave," she said. "Whoever was managing the maps or managing the comms was not on their game."
Yep.
The 800 block, here we go, this is interesting. The 800 block of East Sacramento Street is the first block west of North Lake Avenue and the site of another Eaton fire death. Residents in the area, including those on the East Sacramento Street, were the last in Altadena to be issued evacuation orders at 5:50 a.m. Residents of the block standing outside their levelled homes told the Times that they did not receive evacuation orders or orders prior to 5:50. Their neighbours, one block east across North Lake Avenue, received evacuation orders more than 10 hours earlier, one block away. So here's where the story gets really interesting.
Okay. Would there be any difference between the...
Is there something different between one block and the next block? Because it seems like it's almost like there's a thing there, right? And this is the Los Angeles Times, and these are ruthless journalists who are going to get to the heart of the story, and they're going to tell you what they have discovered, and they're going to...
And they will bring in... They know their history too. And
they will bring truth to power, Phelim.
Yes.
The North Lake Avenue line is especially significant in Altadena's history because it served as a primary east-west redlining boundary. Decades ago, black residents were restricted from living east of Lake Avenue, according to the Altadena Heritage and the Altadena Historical Society. In 2023, the census areas east of the lake had a significantly larger share of white residents than those west of the boundary, according to the Los Angeles Times.
And so the Los Angeles Times, the headline on the article then was
Racism
killed 17 people.
So it was racism. It was racism that killed 17 people. But guess who doesn't say that?
Obviously not the LA Times.
And here's my question to you, Phelim.
Everything's racist.
If Los Angeles was run by Republicans, do you think that the Los Angeles Times might say that those racist Republicans caused the burning to death of 17 innocent people?
Yes, because they don't value black lives, you know.
So I love this story so much because basically, big dilemma for the Los Angeles Times. They have to report what these people in Altadena said because that's their people, the people that they cared the most about, the black population in Altadena. So they have to quote them, but they won't go there and make the connection because there isn't a connection. Because the truth is, what happened is complete incompetence.
Yeah,
it's an criminal incompetence. But from the way they've written the story, really what happened was that it was racist.
Yeah.
But how would it be racist? Because you see, progressives can't be racist, Phelim. They just don't know how to do that. They don't know how to do racism.
Of course, the LA Times would never throw around racist allegations.
No,
when they're not justified, they would never do that. And they would never support, say, people who would walk out of a play claiming the playwright was racist, even though he was giving verbatim voice
testimony to black people who were
black people. That's the
we're talking to
the Ferguson play. So the LA Times, they had never wasted an opportunity to claim racism, or the old LA Times did. Authors were racist. Remember that girl who was racist, who wrote a book about Mexico? She got cancelled because they didn't support her because she was white, and how dare she write about the Latinx experience.
Move on, Phelim. So anyway, I just thought that story was extraordinary. And by the way, it is incredibly tragic and very frightening that 17 people died because of the fact that they didn't get evacuation orders either on time or at all.
Yep.
And what I think is also interesting, which is kind of a side note that does bother me a lot, and it came up a lot during COVID, it's like an anthropological question, actually, that there's a very large, I think, population of people who are very law-abiding. Yeah. And they're so law-abiding that they will actually ignore their own senses and what they see right in front of them because people in charge. Because actually, by the way, we were brought up like that. Respect authority. And by the way, if you're living in Los Angeles, I think the most important thing, here's my lesson to people living in Los Angeles, including ourselves, have no respect for authority because you will burn to death.
Yes.
Basically, you need to, you're on your own. Basically, if you're here in LA, we pay the highest taxes in the whole country. But in a crisis, you are on your own. Yes. And we are very, very conscious of that right now and questioning our future here. Because honestly, what if the big earthquake comes, the one that they've talked about? Here's what I've suddenly become really aware of and never really was so aware of it until now was, when it happens, we are on our own. Yeah. And it's really scary. And we're going to be on our own with a lot of criminally insane homeless people wandering around at the same time as us trying to scramble for safety.
Yes.
So you're on your own, and it's an awful realization.
And still, people are not allowed access to their houses. And Trump gave Karen Bass a hard time about that. Oh, no, we're going to, as soon as possible. But the reality is, people should just go up there in a car, like the migrants at the border, actually. Have a caravan of people up there. 1,000 cars, go to the Palisades and just
keep driving.
Shoot through the checkpoints. And they're not going, what are they going to do? But no, people are
very, very law-abiding.
To their own detriment.
Yeah.
So, talking of Trump, he's brought in the Birthright Citizenship Executive Order. Now, Birthright Citizenship Executive Order says that just because you're born in America doesn't mean you're automatically entitled to citizenship. And
there's outrage about him saying this.
And
Absolutely.
It's unconstitutional,
Dreadful.
blah, blah.
Dreadful.
Well, let's see if it's unconstitutional or not. But most countries in the world don't have birthright citizenship.
This is a good thing to know, for people to know, yeah.
We actually happen to have some experience of this because Ireland had birthright citizenship, and then Ireland started...
Progressive Ireland.
And Ireland realised that was a disaster. And I think birthright citizenship worked when Ireland was a country known for exporting people, but suddenly there was an economic boom, and suddenly they looked around, and at 20% of all births in Ireland were suddenly to non-nationals. And then they realised half of the births in Dublin maternity hospitals were to non-nationals. People were coming over to get their anchor babies. So the minister at the time said, and it was in the Constitution, that the idea of birthright citizenship. So he suggested having a referendum. They decided to have a referendum, and the Guardian called it racist. Fintan O'Toole of the Irish Times said the idea was disgrace to Irish democracy. A referendum is a disgrace to Irish democracy, a scheme cooked up by the government on the basis of scare stories of foreign women coming to Ireland to have their babies purely so that these children could then claim Irish citizenship. He said it degraded Irish voters. The leader of the Labour Party now, Ivana Bacik, condemned it as having no rational basis, a cheap political trick. I mean, these are the great and the good of Ireland. Mm-hmm. These are really good.
A cheap political trick designed to play on unjustified fears about immigration and to distract the government's woeful failure to deliver on public services.
Yes, and when it went to vote, how many voted for it? 80% of the Irish people voted to overturn the birthright, the most wokest country in Europe. And suddenly birthright citizenship was...
So here's news. Here's news for all you Americans. The Constitution can be changed. Laws can be changed.
Yes.
And the birthright statute could be changed.
That's right. And
so it may happen.
And don't listen to people who tell you that it's the worst thing you could do. It's not. It's not. So... on to the last, we're going to wrap up here, Oscars. So Hollywood's dying, and as I say, the Oscar nominations, we could talk a lot about the Oscar nominations, but Conclave and Emilia Perez, right? Conclave received 8 nominations. Emilia Perez, this foreign language movie, received 13 nominations, right? And Conclave was Best Picture. Emilia Perez is 13 nominations.
Including Best Picture, Best Director, Best Actress, and Best Supporting Actress. Yes. And obviously important to note immediately that the Best Actress nomination for Emilia Perez, it goes to a man.
A transgender.
To a transgender.
Yes.
So just to a man. It's a man then.
So, but basically two. So that's a record number of Oscar nominations for any movie ever in history. I think it's a joint record.
Wow.
Yeah,
wow.
13.
And then Conclave, another highly decorated nominated film, has at the now I haven't seen it. And apparently all of the performances are fabulous.
But the twist
at the centre of it is that the Pope who becomes the Pope is actually intersex.
Yeah,
because that's what we really need in films.
So they're complaining, and Hollywood wants more money of the Californian government. They want the tax incentives to be open ended. At the moment, they're tagged the top at 300 million. Newsom wants to make it 700 million, but actually they want it to be open ended. That whoever wants the tax incentive can get them, and they produce the 2 most nominated movies in the Oscars have trans or intersex or crap like that as the plot twist, as the main driver.
And
of
I
the
think
plot.
your point is, and this, here's Exhibit A and Exhibit B, why Hollywood is failing, why people are not going to the movies anymore, because this stuff is being pushed into every possible storyline.
And we should not be subsidizing this.
And we shouldn't be subsidizing. And we're not going to subsidize it.
No, we're not.
And even though Netflix, actually, it's on Netflix. Amelia Perez is on Netflix. We haven't watched it in protest. We probably should watch it, but I literally don't want to be counted as somebody who's watched it. I don't want them to use my...
If anyone out there knows a way you can watch something on Netflix...
Yes, without them knowing you watched it.
Yes, can we do a VPN or something like that?
Exactly. There must be some way of doing that.
Okay.
That's it for this week.
Well, thank you very much. So don't forget, if you want to donate to us, go to October7theplay.com, or if you want to donate to our other
In general, you can go to unreportedstoriesociety.com. Unreportedstoriesociety.com. We really do appreciate it. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
See you next week.
Bye.